Hi and welcome everyone. I'm coming to you from Houston, which is the traditional lands of the Apache, Caddo, Comanche, Kickawa, and Wichita nations. And so I just want to welcome everyone on behalf of ASHE and CPPHE. I also want to thank the Student Aid Refdesk for their sponsorship, particularly for the CPPHE pre-conference. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Charlotte, and I'm looking forward for this session.
Thanks so much, Meredith. We're going to do just a quick round of introductions among the panelists, and then we will get started with our presentation. My name is Charlotte Etier, and I am the Director of Research and Grants at the National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators, NASFAA. And NASFAA is the trade and professional association for financial aid administrators on college campuses. And we are excited to be here today to share the Refdesk with you. Karen, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Karen McCarthy, and I work with Charlotte at NASFAA. I am the Vice President of Public Policy and Federal Relations.
Yeah, and I'm Jake Gross. I'm an Associate Professor of Higher Education Administration at the University of Louisville. I am not officially affiliated with NASFAA nor compensated by them, but I'm excited here to talk about the Student Aid Reference Desk.
I do appreciate the disclaimer, Jake. Thank you. So I am going to share my screen and share the Student Aid Refdesk with everyone, just so you sort of have a visual as we're going through and presenting. So just to confirm, Jake or Karen, can you see the ref? Okay, I see you. Thank you, Jake. So the Student Aid Refdesk is a product that is administered by NASFAA. Originally, NASFAA had this Encyclopedia of Student Aid, which served as a repository for really, as we say, all things student aid. We had several different topics that were focused on the practitioner side of things, and we worked to compile any statutory guidance, any Department of Education publications, and in fact, I will click on the cohort default rate topic just to sort of show you guys. So this is really what the Encyclopedia of Student Aid looked like. Again, Statutory Authority, regulation, Department of Education references. And that's what the product was for a very long time. But a few years ago, NASFAA really wanted to think about how we could turn the Encyclopedia of Student Aid, which was also a NASFAA member-only tool, so you had to be a member of NASFAA to be able to log in and use it, into a more public good, so that everyone could access it. So we worked with ECMC Foundation to obtain a grant to convert it into a public resource and become rebranded and become the Student Aid Refdesk. So the Student Aid Refdesk is the current site that lives on the internet. And again, we still have all of our same terms. We've been adding additional terms as we're able to. So it's not just focused on the practitioner piece, but also focused on the broader policy piece. And things that scholars might also want, and our think tank and association colleagues. But one of the biggest pieces that we did whenever we converted this is we added an entire section to each topic, which is publications, articles, and other resources. So this lift in converting to the Refdesk was really about bringing more to each topic than just documents from the department or from FSA, but about bringing in the work of associations, of think tanks, and very specifically of our scholarly colleagues who are studying this area. So as a team, we went through, we combed all of the journals, we tried to do sort of a historical pull in to get everything up to date, and worked with the Journal of Student Financial Aid to pull in all of their articles from the 50 plus years of work that they have been doing. And categorize everything so that it falls within the appropriate category, in this case, cohort default rate, and really sort of turns each topic into a full picture on that topic. So again, if you want to find the statutory authority on cohort default rate, you can, but you can also look specifically at what scholarly articles have been published, or what have some of our think tank colleagues done on this topic. And then below each section has its own subtopics as well, if someone wants to dig in a little bit deeper. Not all of the subtopics have had the publications coded within them, but we are continuing to work to get that piece done. So again, when we converted the Refdesk, that was one of the biggest things that we did. And we were able to do this in collaboration with our partners that work with us on the Refdesk. So we do have a group of contributing partners, as you can see: AACC, ACE, ACCT, the College Board, the Council for Higher Education Accreditation, NACUA, the National Association of Independent Colleges and Universities, and obviously us. And you can tell I'm not great at saying every single acronym, which is why some of them get said fully out and some of them get said more shortened. So they really work with us to bring in additional publications that we might not have seen, or give us feedback on publications if we're unsure whether or not they fit in this topic, or if we're unsure if they're truly bipartisan. And then we also have a group of distributing partners. So distributing partners are mostly other associations or any sort of group that has a distribution list of some type. So again, it could be a think tank. And they really work to champion the Refdesk for us. So they share the Refdesk every month. They make sure that it gets out in front of all of their partners. So you can see we have some really great distributing partners on here. And then the last tier that we have are sort of our supporting partners. So these are groups that might not necessarily have a membership body that they would share the Refdesk with, but they want their name to be a part of it to let others know that they support the work of this and that they feel like it is a reliable and useful resource. So a lot of our scholars, we're very thankful, fall in this area. Jake is a supporting partner of the Refdesk, as well as Nick Hillman, Laura Perna, Robert Kelchin, Lyle McKinney, and several other people within here. So we're very thankful to all of our Refdesk partners. They give us lots of great feedback. When we want to try and build out a new resource, we'll ask them questions, ask them thoughts from the different seats that they sit in. And we're often able to get some great information back. So the one other thing I really wanted to highlight in just talking about the product itself is how work gets into the Refdesk. So we as an association do our best due diligence to make sure anytime new journals are released, we go through and look through the articles to see if they are appropriate to pull in, or as new reports get published. But we do also have a submit section on our About page where you can share your own work to be published in the Refdesk. And it's simple as submitting your contact information and then a URL link to the report, or uploading a PDF if that is your preference. And we have our advisory board, which was our highest level, take a look, confirm that everybody feels that it's bipartisan, which is our only requirement for being included in the Refdesk. And then we would get it placed up on our website pretty quickly. So I wanted to flag that. And I think Jake's going to talk a little bit more about that later and why that would be really great for your work. And so is Karen. But we definitely encourage everyone, if you have things that have come out recently, or even something that we may have missed when we were doing our deep dig, please feel free to submit it. We would love to have it included in the Refdesk. So with that, I'm going to unshare. And then I'm going to turn it over to Karen to talk about sort of how we disseminate the Refdesk, how we use the Refdesk, and a few other things. So Karen.
Great. Thank you so much, Charlotte. So Charlotte and I, as we said, both work at NASFAA. Charlotte is the director of our research department and the leader of this particular project. So she provided all the background on the history of it and where it came from and what it looks like now. I was not really involved in any of that side of it. So I work more on our policy development side at NASFAA. So definitely more work with kind of the diving into particular topics with the intent of developing some type of policy recommendations, or helping other people who want to do that dive and directing them appropriately. People who are interested in particular topics but don't really know where to go about doing research, so that they can understand, what are the hot topics on this particular subject. And I think that, as Charlotte talked about the history of the Refdesk and how she explained how it had transitioned from being the encyclopedia, which was really a kind of a document repository of what the rules are and guidance as it exists right now. And while I think that was helpful, where the Refdesk has really expanded on that is to dive more into the, okay, so I understand the basics of this topic and what the rules are and what schools have to do or whatever the topic is. But what I'm really interested in learning more about is, where is this topic going? What are the conversations about this topic? Where are changes needed? And that's where all of the contributions that come from all of you and others are really helpful to kind of build that out and provide a richer background and context for any particular topic. So I know that I wouldn't necessarily put NASFAA in the category of a policy maker, but we do oftentimes develop recommendations that we are then carrying forward to advocate on with the Hill and the actual policymakers. And when we are developing those recommendations, we are definitely doing deeper dives into topics that we are much more familiar with from the perspective of the compliance angle. And so the material that is contributed to the Refdesk really helps us to dive deeper into the background and what are the conversations, what are people studying out there in the field, where are the opportunities for change in particular areas. So I think in that way, the material that's contributed to the Refdesk is really helpful for NASFAA in terms of us fully building out what our recommendations will be, areas for future research, where we think more exploration needs to be, questions that haven't been raised, questions that have been raised and already thoroughly researched by all of you out there in the field. I will also say that we often get questions from others who kind of correctly or incorrectly think that we have all the answers, and so that we might be able to provide all of this background to all of them. So it is kind of a reference document for all of us when people are looking to NASFAA, like, can you help me understand, like, who has done research on this particular area, like where I should be looking, people I can talk to, things like that. From the Hill, I will also say that for the most part, people on the Hill like want their answers yesterday and they do not want to be doing the deep dive on their own. But again, I will say having the Refdesk material available to NASFAA staff also helps us to turn around those requests and get information out to Hill staff in a really quick way like they want. Some of our ed committee staff, I will say the people who really spend a lot of time on these issues, do try to do some of their own research ahead of time before they reach out to NASFAA. And so I will say that for some of those committee staff, they will be using the Refdesk directly themselves rather than reaching out to NASFAA and asking us to do that research. But I really think that the Refdesk is somewhat of a one-stop shop to kind of get a broad perspective on anything that is going on any particular topic, because nobody really wants to recreate the wheel or have to do all this research on their own. Nobody wants to waste any time, especially when you're talking about policymakers who are really under the gun in terms of, I need something fast, I need to draft this bill right now. So very briefly, I would say that is how the Refdesk is used kind of from the perspective of the policy world and how we are using it and referring policymakers to the tools that are within it. And I will turn it over to Jake, who is going to present how the Refdesk might work for all of you as scholars.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. So I was excited when NASFAA started working on this project. I had been a user of the Encyclopedia, which was behind the firewall. So in order to access that, which made sense at the time, but you had to pay the membership to get access to it. And that was a nice repository, as Karen and Charlotte said, policies, statutes, regulations, and all of that. But it was, no disrespect to my colleagues here, it was pretty static. And it was pretty dense. And so what I like about this is that it's not behind a firewall anymore. And I think It's much more kind of a living repository with different groups feeding information into it. And I think that's really helpful for those of us that are based at colleges, universities, doing work related to financial aid. And I know we have, some very well-known scholars of financial aid here, some emerging scholars. What I do want to do is just briefly hit on what I think the value is to those of us who are university or institution based. First of all, I think a big benefit of this for those of us that are doing research on financial aid is that like NASFAA is the practitioner organization, right? So they represent 32,000 financial aid administrators and just over 3,000 institutions of higher education. And as part of that, every day they publish something called Today's News, where they're highlighting new research, new reports, new work that's being done, and they're drawing on the Student Aid Reference Desk. So by feeding your work into the Student Aid Reference Desk, you're reaching a really wide audience of practitioners, which I think, of course, is why most of us do what we do. And as Karen was saying, they're getting that work in front of policymakers, right? So that's Karen's that's what Karen does. Karen spends all of your time, most of your time, Karen, right? Working with policymakers and helping inform the policy discussions. So to the extent that we can get our work channeled into this database, into this living repository, the greater our chances of sort of getting the work out there in a living way. And I think about this, it doesn't replace our major databases like ERIC, EBSCO, or any of those. It's really a complement to it. But the different piece of this in my mind is it has that practitioner and policymaker piece to it. And I think importantly, the policy expertise that only the folks at NASFAA can really kind of bring to the conversation. So in terms of your own work as a scholar, academic, I think that's some of the value of it. I will also say I edit the Journal of Student Financial Aid, and we are an open access journal. Everything that we've published since 1971, it's make the knowledge free and available. We've done it. All of that is being fed into this. And I think it behooves other journals to do that as much as possible, even if they can't be open access, but to at least feed into this database, again, because it really connects to practitioners and researchers. So that's the first way I think it's helpful to us in terms of our own research. Now, if you work with graduate students at the master's or doctoral level, I think this is super useful, because if I have an incoming master's student who is interested in a topic and is still trying to find their way around, the way that NASFAA has organized, each main level topic and then the subtopics is incredibly helpful. Great, thank you, Charlotte. It's an incredibly helpful way for someone, I think, students start finding their way around a topic and around kind of a body of research. So I point graduate students to this regularly as they're trying to do some work. And also, I think the benefit here is that NASFAA is, of course, it's very expert in the topic of financial aid policy, and I think have a good idea about what the most current language and the most current topics are in a way that maybe some of our more scholarly databases aren't. Also, the folks at NASFAA spend a lot of their time keeping up with the current research, and I know they're actively feeding the work of some of the scholars we have here and other scholars that aren't here but that are supporting members of this. They're making sure that work gets in there. So I think it's a really nice current way to do that. And that includes not just the peer-reviewed journal articles, which we know can lag behind, but also some of the policy papers, the white papers that folks are doing. So, I think you can feed your graduate students to this, and it's a really helpful resource for them. And then the last thing, and I love this, is the way that NASFAA, and you've got just if you leave it there, Charlotte, the statutory authority, the regulations, references, there's just so much of that is so nuanced and is so fast changing from my perspective that that's hard to keep up with if that's not your full-time job. And it turns out that there are people in NASFAA whose full-time job it is, like Karen. And so this is a great place to start or to dig into work. It's a great place to because I think NASFAA does a pretty good job of, it's pretty comprehensive in terms of the statutes and regulations. They have to stay up on that. And I think that's just a fantastic, really much easier way than going to some of our other databases to track all of that down. So anyway, to conclude, I think it's a great resource for those of us that are university based in a number of ways, and we don't have to pay extra for it. and we can rely on the expertise of our fine colleagues at NASFAA to help us with it as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Jake. You reminded me of two more things that I wanted to add when you were talking about the non-open access journals. So we do include items that are not open access. So if you happen to have something published in a non-open access journal, you can still send it to us. You can send us the link where they would go in that journal. And then if you're being kind, you'll also include a PDF so that we can review it if we don't happen to have a membership to that particular journal. Just confirm that it is in fact a bipartisan piece of work. And then if you refer down to a couple of items on here, you'll see, for example, a really great one is the Education Policy and Interdisciplinary Journal of Policy and Practice. That is not an open access journal. So we still include it, but we do put the little lock right beside it. And we just do that to let folks know that when they click on it, they're going to need to log in. This is something that we don't just see with journals, right? Several of our association colleagues will publish resources that are not open access, that are member only benefits, but we still feel like they're worth including and relevant to the Refdesk, which is why we want to put them in there. And it could happen that the person going has a login, or perhaps they reach out to the publishing organization and are able to obtain it either way. But do not be deterred if it is something you publish in a non-open access journal. We would still love to include it in the Refdesk. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about to sort of wrap us up, one other thing that we do as an initiative to really get the Refdesk out there, especially in front of our partners, and again, this is for all levels of partner. So every month, our communications department and myself publish a Refdesk release notes document. So this includes everything. It talks about everything that's been newly published in the last month. It lets you know what the trending topics are, talks about new resources. It specifically pulls out for you. So again, if you're like Jake mentioned, and let's just say you're studying expected family contribution, then this would let you know that two updated, I guess I should say, updated chapters of the handbook came out in that, or were published to the Refdesk in that previous month. Again, professional judgment, some new ED references were published. If we have new functionality that we're working on, we include that. So we are working on more robust search features. And then how to be a Refdesk partner, again, is in there. And all of our old release notes are on the website as well. And once we author that document every month, then it gets distributed to everyone who was on our partners list. And if they're a distributing partner, then they would craft some sort of a blurb of their own to share with their membership. So they can either just pull from the release notes, they can just share the release notes, or they can choose to do something on their own. And if they are a contributing partner, then it would be more of an informational piece, which again, a lot of our scholars will still share on social media. Perhaps they forward it to their doc students or other options. But we have done that every month since the Refdesk was released last year. And, we have found that we've gotten some pretty good open rates and some pretty good click rates from it. So we will continue to do that as time goes on. So with that, I think we are done with the presentation portion of our webinar. Not sure if anybody has any questions or comments. I'm just looking down in the chat. I don't see any. Thank you, Jeff, for the positivity. Yeah, we can give it another minute. No one has questions. That's totally okay with us. I'm going to take that to mean that it's so well put together that it's all self-explanatory and you totally know how to submit your work now. And I'll get lots of submission emails in the next couple of days. That's what I take no questions to mean. Jennifer Delaney has a question. I am curious about the topic selected and organizational structure used. Do you see adding other topics in the future? That's a great question. So Karen, I may need your help a little bit with this since I wasn't involved in the encyclopedia, but originally the terms that were in here are all from the encyclopedia. And since it was a practitioner only tool, it was just focused on what our aid administrators would need to help them with the practice of federal student aid, right? Of actually working with their students on campus and administering the aid. So we wanted to give ourselves like 6 to 8 months with just those topics and then see what kind of feedback we got on additional topics that would be needed. So we ping our partners every couple of months and ask them, what are your thoughts? What are some areas that you might see as additional resources or additional topics needed? And then also we internally as staff brainstorm some as well. So I can tell you that in the works, we have a financial literacy topic. So we are working on building out, there's not as much obviously in like the Statutory Authority or maybe the department resources, but we're working on building out the publications and other resources for that particular topic. So we do welcome, if there's a topic you think should be included, then we welcome that. More specifically, the topics seem very focused in federal student aid areas where more state topics be added. I don't think that we are opposed to state topics at all. Karen, would you agree? Yeah, I think we definitely, if you have some specific thoughts on state topics, Jen, then I would love to hear them. Our wheelhouse lives mostly at the federal level, right? And we stay at the federal level as far as federal student aid administration. So that's probably not where we would have gone first, but we always welcome some thoughts on adding that piece for sure.